Have you ever noticed something strange? We wait for big happiness, a promotion, a relationship, a perfect body, a perfect life. But happiness quietly comes in a cup of tea that tastes just right, in a message from someone we didn't expect, in the sound of rain when the world slows down. The irony is this: life is giving us joy in small packets every day, but our mind is busy searching for a big box. Today, let us talk about finding joy in small moments. We spend a large part of our life telling ourselves a quiet lie. Once this phase is over, I will be happy. Once I get that job, then life will begin. Once things settle down, I'll finally relax. And without realizing it, happiness is always scheduled for a future date that never arrives. This way of thinking feels harmless, but it slowly steals the joy of the present moment. We begin to treat today like a waiting room instead of realizing that today is the main event. We live as if life is a rehearsal and the real show will start later. But life does not work that way. There is no background music announcing the perfect time to be happy. The mind loves the idea of someday because it feels safe. If happiness is in the future, we don't have to take responsibility for our emotional state today. We blame circumstances, people, and situations. We convince ourselves that our lack of joy is logical, justified, even necessary. But while we wait, moments quietly pass us by. Think about how many times we rush through a day without actually experiencing it. We eat without tasting, listen without hearing, and look without seeing. Not because life is empty, but because our attention is always somewhere else, usually in a future that exists only in imagination. The truth is uncomfortable but freeing. Life never settles down. There will always be something pending, something unfinished, something uncertain. If happiness depends on everything being perfect, it will always remain postponed. The finish line keeps moving and we keep chasing it, exhausted and disappointed. What we often forget is that joy is not a reward for solving all problems. It is strength that helps us face them. Waiting to be happy until everything is fixed is like refusing to breathe until the air is pure. Life doesn't pause its rhythm just because we are not ready. Small moments don't wait for permission. A quiet morning, a warm meal, a shared smile, a deep breath. These moments appear and disappear on their own schedule. When we are trapped in the illusion of someday, we miss them completely. Happiness was never meant to be a destination. It was meant to be a companion, not something we arrive at, but something we practice while walking. When we stop treating the present as a stepping stone and start treating it as home, something shifts inside us. The most surprising realization is this: the future we are waiting for is being built out of the moments we are ignoring right now. And if we cannot find joy in today, tomorrow will quietly inherit the same emptiness, just dressed in a different situation. Breaking free from the illusion of someday does not require dramatic change. It begins with a simple decision: to stop postponing life, to stop believing that joy is hiding somewhere ahead, to recognize that this moment, imperfect and ordinary as it may seem, is the only place where life is actually happening. We grow up believing that happiness must arrive in a dramatic way, a big achievement, a major breakthrough, a moment so powerful that it changes everything forever. Our movies, social media, and conversations reinforce this idea again and again. They teach us to celebrate milestones, highlights, and success stories, while quietly ignoring the ordinary days that actually make up most of our life. Because of this belief, we start underestimating small joys. We dismiss them as temporary, insignificant, or not good enough. A calm evening feels boring compared to excitement. A peaceful routine feels dull compared to achievement. We forget that intensity is not the same as fulfillment. Big moments are rare by nature. They are meant to be rare. A promotion doesn't happen every week. A dream vacation doesn't happen every month. Public recognition doesn't happen every day. If joy depends only on such moments, then most of life will feel like a gap between happiness rather than happiness itself. There is also another hidden problem with big happiness. It doesn't last as long as we expect. The moment we wait for finally arrives, we feel a rush, a sense of achievement, a temporary high. But soon the mind adjusts. What once felt extraordinary becomes normal. The same mind that celebrated yesterday starts demanding more today. This is not because we are ungrateful, but because the mind is wired to move forward, not to stay satisfied. When happiness is attached only to big events, life becomes emotionally unstable. High expectations create high disappointment. When things go well, we feel excited. When they don't, we feel empty. Our emotional state becomes dependent on external results rather than internal stability. We rise and fall with circumstances, losing balance again and again. Small moments work differently. They don't overwhelm us. They gently nourish us. A short walk in fresh air may not create excitement, but it creates calm. A kind conversation may not feel dramatic, but it creates connection. These moments don't shout for attention, yet they slowly build emotional strength. They don't spike happiness, they sustain it. The beauty of small joys is that they are always available. They don't require permission, money, applause, or perfect conditions. They ask only one thing: presence. When we stop chasing intensity and start valuing consistency, life becomes lighter. We stop demanding extraordinary experiences from ordinary days and start discovering quiet satisfaction within them. Big happiness looks impressive from a distance, but small happiness is what carries us through difficult times. It teaches us resilience. It reminds us that even when life is not going according to plan, it is still offering something worth noticing. And in that noticing, something softens inside us. Most of the time, joy is not missing from our life. Our attention is. We move through our days on autopilot, doing one task after another, thinking about what is next rather than what is now. The body is present, but the mind is elsewhere, and wherever the mind goes, that is where life feels like it is happening. Awareness is the quiet skill of noticing without rushing. It is the difference between merely existing and actually experiencing. When awareness is absent, even beautiful moments pass unnoticed. When awareness is present, even ordinary moments become meaningful. The situation may remain the same, but the quality of experience changes completely. Think about how often we hold something precious in our hands without realizing its value. A peaceful morning feels ordinary until it disappears. Good health feels normal until it is challenged. The presence of loved ones feels guaranteed until distance reminds us otherwise. Awareness brings us back before appreciation turns into regret. The mind is trained to scan for problems. This habit helps us survive, but it also blinds us to goodness. We notice what is wrong quickly and what is right slowly. Awareness gently reverses this habit. It teaches us to see balance, to acknowledge difficulties without letting them dominate the entire picture of our life. When we slow down and observe, we realize that joy is not always loud or obvious. It often arrives quietly, disguised as simplicity, the warmth of sunlight through a window, the rhythm of breathing, the comfort of familiarity. These moments don't demand attention, but they reward it deeply. Awareness also helps us break free from constant comparison. When the mind is present, it is not busy measuring life against someone else's highlights. It is fully engaged with what is real, not what is imagined. In that engagement, contentment naturally arises. Being aware does not mean forcing positivity or ignoring pain. It means seeing clearly. It means allowing life to be exactly as it is, without immediately trying to escape or control it. In this clarity, emotions soften, resistance reduces, acceptance grows. The more awareness we bring into our daily life, the more we realize that joy has always been close. It was never hiding somewhere far away. It was waiting patiently for our attention, and when attention finally arrives, joy does not rush in dramatically. It settles in quietly, like something that has always belonged there. We live in a world that celebrates speed, faster responses, quicker results, constant movement. Slowing down is often mistaken for laziness, and pausing is seen as a waste of time. As a result, we rush through our days without giving ourselves space to breathe, reflect, or feel. In this constant motion, joy struggles to survive. A pause is not an escape from life. It is a return to it. When we pause, even briefly, we step out of reaction mode and into awareness. We stop being pushed by urgency and start choosing our responses. In that small gap, something shifts inside us. The nervous system relaxes, the mind settles, and the heart becomes more receptive. Most of our stress does not come from what we do, but from how we move from one thing to another. We carry the tension of the previous moment into the next one without resetting ourselves. Pausing allows us to put things down, expectations, pressure, unfinished thoughts, before picking up the next task. It is like clearing a cluttered table before placing something new on it. Joy often appears in these in-between spaces, not while achieving, but while resting, not while speaking, but while listening, not while rushing forward, but while standing still. A pause allows us to notice details we usually miss, the calm after a deep breath, the relief of silence, the comfort of simply being. Learning to pause does not require changing our schedule or responsibilities. It requires changing our relationship with time. Even a few conscious breaths between activities can create a sense of grounding. Even a moment of silence before reacting can prevent regret. These small pauses accumulate, slowly reshaping the way we experience life. When we do not pause, life starts to feel heavy. Everything feels urgent, important, and overwhelming. When we pause, perspective returns. We remember that not everything needs immediate attention, and not every thought needs to be believed. This clarity reduces emotional exhaustion and creates inner space where calm can exist. Pausing also reconnects us with ourselves. In constant activity, we forget how we feel. We ignore fatigue, emotional needs, and inner signals. A pause brings honesty. It gently asks us to check in rather than check out. In that honesty, we become more compassionate toward ourselves. Joy does not thrive in chaos. It needs space, stillness, and gentleness. When we allow ourselves to pause, we give joy permission to enter. Not forcefully, not dramatically, but naturally, like something that was always waiting for us to slow down enough to notice. Much of our dissatisfaction does not come from what we have, but from what we keep focusing on. The mind has a natural tendency to highlight what is missing, what went wrong, and what could have been better. This habit slowly drains joy, even when life is offering enough reasons to feel content. Gratitude gently shifts this pattern, not by denying difficulties, but by restoring balance. Gratitude is not about pretending that everything is perfect. It is about recognizing that not everything is broken. Two things can exist at the same time, challenges and blessings. When we acknowledge only the struggle, life feels heavy. When we acknowledge only the blessing, we feel disconnected from reality. Gratitude allows us to hold both with maturity. When we practice gratitude, the same life starts to feel different. The problems may remain unchanged, but our inner response softens. What once felt like constant pressure begins to feel manageable. Gratitude does not reduce responsibilities, it reduces resentment. It reminds us that while life may not be easy, it is still meaningful. Often we think gratitude should appear automatically when life improves. In reality, gratitude is what improves how life feels. It is a muscle that grows stronger with use. The more we notice what is working, the more the mind learns to see stability instead of chaos. Slowly, peace replaces constant complaint. Gratitude also brings us back to the present moment. Worry pulls us into the future, regret traps us in the past, but gratitude anchors us in now. It makes us aware of what is already here: support, effort, progress, simple comforts. These may not be extraordinary, but they are sufficient. There is a quiet humility in gratitude. It reminds us that much of what we enjoy is not earned alone. The effort of others, the support of circumstances, and the grace of timing all play a role. This understanding reduces arrogance and increases connection, both with people and with life itself. When gratitude becomes a daily habit, joy stops feeling fragile. We stop waiting for reasons to be happy and start recognizing them. Life does not suddenly become perfect, but it becomes kinder, and in that kindness we find a steady, grounded joy that does not depend on everything going our way. Routine often gets a bad reputation. We associate it with boredom, stagnation, and lack of excitement. We believe that joy lives in novelty and that repetition slowly drains life of its color. But the problem is not routine itself. The problem is unconscious routine. When we move through our days without awareness, even exciting things lose their charm. Most of our life is made up of ordinary moments: waking up, getting ready, commuting, working, eating, resting. If we wait for special occasions to feel alive, we will feel disconnected most of the time. Learning to find joy in routine is not lowering our standards for happiness. It is expanding our capacity to experience it. There is a quiet comfort hidden in routine. Predictability creates safety. Familiarity reduces anxiety. When we stop resisting routine and start engaging with it, we notice its supportive nature. A regular meal, a familiar path, a consistent habit, these provide stability in a world that is constantly changing. Routine also gives us the opportunity to practice presence. When something is new, attention comes easily. When something is familiar, attention must be chosen. This choice is powerful. It trains the mind to stay rather than seek escape. In staying, we begin to notice subtle details we once ignored. Small rituals within routine can become sources of joy. A mindful cup of tea, a few moments of silence before starting the day, a short walk at the same time each evening. These moments may look simple from the outside, but they quietly anchor us. They remind us that life does not need to be dramatic to be meaningful. When we constantly chase variety, we become restless. Nothing feels enough for long. Routine, when embraced with awareness, teaches contentment. It shows us that joy is not always about change. Sometimes it is about depth. Going deeper into the same experience instead of constantly searching for a new one. Over time, routine becomes a friend rather than a burden. It holds us steady during difficult phases and supports us when motivation is low. Instead of draining energy, it conserves it, and within that conservation, joy finds space to grow, softly, steadily, and without needing constant excitement. We often believe that having more will make life better. More money, more comfort, more options, more recognition. At first, this belief seems reasonable. Comfort does make life easier, But slowly, without realizing it, more turns into never enough. The desire that was meant to serve us starts controlling us. Simplicity is not about rejecting the world or living with less forcefully. It is about understanding what truly adds value and letting go of what only adds noise. When life becomes crowded with unnecessary wants, joy struggles to breathe. When life is simplified, clarity returns. A complicated life looks impressive from the outside, but it often feels heavy on the inside. Too many choices exhaust the mind. Too many expectations create pressure. Too many possessions demand maintenance. Simplicity quietly removes this burden. It reduces mental clutter and creates space for peace. Simplicity also changes our relationship with time. When we need less, we rush less. We stop filling every moment with activity and allow ourselves to just be. This unoccupied space is where creativity, calm, and joy naturally emerge. Silence becomes comfortable rather than uncomfortable. There is freedom in not needing to impress. When we simplify our desires, we stop living for validation. Our self-worth becomes less dependent on external approval and more rooted in inner stability. This shift is subtle but powerful. It brings confidence without arrogance and contentment without comparison. Simple pleasures are often the most nourishing. A genuine conversation, restful sleep, honest laughter, meaningful work. These experiences do not require excess. They require attention. When we are no longer distracted by constant wanting, we finally have the energy to enjoy what is already present. Simplicity teaches us that joy is not fragile. It does not depend on perfect arrangements or ideal circumstances. It thrives in clarity, intention, and balance. The simpler our life becomes, the easier it is to feel grateful, grounded, and quietly fulfilled. We often assume that strong relationships are built through grand gestures and dramatic expressions of love. Big celebrations, expensive gifts, and public displays of affection are given a lot of importance. While these moments feel special, they are not what sustain relationships in the long run. What truly builds connection are the small, repeated moments that happen quietly and consistently. Relationships are shaped in everyday interactions. In how we listen when someone speaks, in how we respond when they are tired, upset, or unsure, in whether we are emotionally available, not just physically present. These moments may seem ordinary, but they slowly create trust and safety. Joy in relationships often comes from feeling seen and understood. A simple act of attention, remembering a detail, asking sincerely, being patient, can mean more than any grand gesture. These micro moments tell the other person that they matter, not occasionally, but always. Many conflicts arise not because of major issues, but because of accumulated neglect. When we rush conversations, dismiss feelings, or postpone connection, distance quietly grows. On the other hand, small acts of care, repeated over time, prevent this distance from forming. They act as gentle maintenance for emotional bonds. Being present in relationships also means allowing space for imperfection. Everyone has moods, flaws, and limitations. When we stop expecting people to meet unrealistic standards, interactions become lighter. Acceptance reduces friction and opens the door for warmth and understanding. Joy multiplies when shared. Laughter feels deeper, pain feels lighter, and life feels more meaningful when experienced together. These shared moments do not need planning. They happen when we slow down, pay attention, and choose connection over distraction. Strong relationships are not built in extraordinary moments. They are built in ordinary ones. And when we learn to value these small moments of connection, Relationships stop feeling like effort and start feeling like support. We spend a lot of energy trying to appear perfect. We hide our flaws, exaggerate our strengths, and fear making mistakes in front of others. Somewhere along the way, we learn that being wrong is embarrassing and failing is unacceptable. This constant pressure to be flawless slowly drains joy from life. Imperfection is not a personal failure. It is a shared human experience. Everyone forgets, stumbles, reacts emotionally, and makes poor decisions at times. The difference is not in who makes mistakes, but in how we respond to them. When we take ourselves too seriously, every error feels heavy. When we learn to laugh at ourselves, the weight lifts. Laughter creates distance between us and our ego. It reminds us that we are more than a single moment of failure or awkwardness. Instead of replaying mistakes repeatedly in our mind, humor allows us to release tension. It turns embarrassment into learning and self-criticism into self-awareness. Many of our worries are magnified because we imagine others are constantly judging us. In reality, most people are busy dealing with their own imperfections. When we accept our flaws openly, we give others permission to do the same. This openness creates comfort and authenticity in relationships. Perfectionism often disguises itself as high standards, but underneath it is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, fear of losing control. When we soften our expectations of ourselves, we create emotional space to grow. Growth thrives in kindness, not in constant pressure. Laughing at imperfection does not mean avoiding responsibility. It means refusing to let mistakes define our worth. We can acknowledge errors, correct them, and move forward without carrying unnecessary shame. This balanced approach strengthens resilience and emotional stability. Joy returns when we stop fighting our humanity. When we allow ourselves to be imperfect, life becomes lighter. We stop performing and start living. And in that honesty, joy naturally finds its way back into our everyday experience. Nature has a way of teaching without words. A tree grows steadily, bending with the wind but never resisting it completely. A river flows around obstacles, not in frustration but with persistence. The sun rises and sets with quiet consistency, never demanding recognition, yet sustaining life every day. Observing these simple truths offers lessons that are easy to overlook in the noise of human life. We often wait for extraordinary experiences to feel alive, yet nature quietly offers abundance in simplicity. The color of a flower, the pattern of clouds, the sound of birdsong. These moments do not scream for attention, but they are full of subtle joy. The more we pay attention, the more life appears rich and complete. Nature operates without expectation. A seed grows into a plant without asking who will notice. A river continues to flow without needing applause. Everything has a purpose, yet nothing is seeking approval. When we internalize this, we realize that our own worth and happiness do not have to depend on external validation. Life can be meaningful simply by existing fully and faithfully in each moment. Time spent in nature teaches patience and presence. Watching a sunrise or sunset reminds us that change is constant, but we do not need to rush to keep up with it. Seasons shift, storms come and go, yet life continues steady and resilient. By observing these cycles, we learn to accept our own changes and uncertainties with gentleness rather than resistance. Nature also shows the beauty of smallness. A single leaf, a tiny insect, or a drop of rain may seem insignificant, yet they are integral to the whole. Joy often hides in these details. When we slow down to notice them, our perspective shifts. Life no longer feels like a series of tasks to complete, but as a network of experiences to witness and appreciate. There is a quiet generosity in nature that teaches us about abundance without greed. Sunlight, air, water, they are available to all without competition. Observing this helps us realize that joy is also abundant. It is not limited or scarce. By aligning with the rhythms of nature, we learn to embrace simplicity, patience, and gratitude, discovering a steady source of contentment that is always present. Multitasking has become a badge of honor in our culture, but it comes at a cost. When we split our attention across many things at once, we may appear productive, but we rarely experience anything deeply. Life becomes a series of half-finished moments where nothing is fully felt and nothing is fully done. The richness of experience is lost in fragments. Doing one thing fully, even if it seems small or ordinary, has a transformative effect. Washing dishes can become a meditative act if we pay attention to the warmth of the water, the rhythm of our movements, and the satisfaction of completing the task. Eating a meal mindfully allows flavors to emerge that would otherwise go unnoticed. A single conversation, listened to fully, can reveal truths and emotions that are often missed when attention drifts. Presence is the key. When we fully engage with one task, our senses awaken, our mind settles, and we stop chasing what is next. We discover depth in what once seemed trivial. Joy begins to emerge naturally because attention itself is nourishing. It turns ordinary acts into small rituals of living. There is also a quiet efficiency in single tasking. When we focus, work is often completed faster and with fewer errors. But beyond efficiency, the true gift is experiential. The satisfaction of knowing that we were there fully in that moment. It strengthens our connection to ourselves and to whatever we are doing. The habit of doing one thing at a time teaches patience and discipline. It shows us that life is not meant to be rushed, and that fulfillment is rarely found in quantity. Real joy is found in quality, the quality of presence, the quality of attention, the quality of care. Even in moments of stillness, doing one thing fully can bring unexpected clarity. Thoughts become less scattered, emotions less turbulent. When we stop trying to chase multiple outcomes simultaneously, we create space for insight, creativity, and calm. Presence transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary. Ultimately, doing one thing fully is an invitation to live consciously. It is a reminder that life is not measured by the number of tasks we complete, but by the depth with which we experience them. When we embrace this practice, even the simplest actions become a source of quiet, sustaining joy. Giving is one of the most natural ways to experience joy, yet it is often misunderstood. Many think that giving requires wealth, grand gestures, or recognition. In reality, the act of giving is far simpler. A kind word, a listening ear, a small favor offered without expectation. These acts carry tremendous power. Joy is hidden in the intention behind giving, not in the size of the gift. When we give, something inside us expands. There is a quiet satisfaction in knowing that we have made life a little lighter for someone else. This does not mean that giving solves all problems, but it creates a connection, a ripple that touches more than we often realize. Even small acts can have lasting effects, because their value lies in the care with which they are offered. Giving also shifts our perspective from self-centeredness to awareness of others. It softens the mind that constantly measures gain and loss. When we focus on the needs of someone else, we temporarily step out of our own worries and pressures. In this shift, the heart opens and joy naturally flows. Generosity teaches humility. It reminds us that we are part of a larger web of life and that our well-being is connected to the well-being of others. When we give without expecting anything in return, we experience freedom. We release the subtle bondage of constant calculation and comparison, and we discover a lightness that cannot be bought or earned. Joy in giving is amplified when it is intentional and mindful. Giving without distraction, without silently tallying future returns, allows us to experience the full richness of the act. We notice the smile, the relief, or even the simple acknowledgement of another human being. These moments, though quiet and often unnoticed, create deep satisfaction. Over time, giving becomes a habit of the heart rather than a conscious effort. Life starts to feel abundant, not because of what we receive, but because of the energy we contribute. Each act of generosity nurtures a sense of meaning, and meaning itself becomes a source of joy that is steady, resilient, and quietly profound. Comparison quietly steals joy from our lives, often without us even noticing. We look at others' successes, possessions, or experiences and measure ourselves against them, thinking that if we had more, or if we were different, life would be better. This habit distracts us from what is already present and valuable in our own lives, leaving a lingering sense of inadequacy. The mind naturally seeks benchmarks, but when comparison becomes constant, it becomes destructive. It turns gratitude into envy, contentment into longing, and curiosity into judgment. Every achievement of someone else is perceived as a personal loss, even though it has nothing to do with our own journey. In this way, we trap ourselves in a cycle of dissatisfaction that never ends. Everyone's path is unique, shaped by circumstances, choices, timing, and unseen struggles. Comparing our behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel is not only unfair, it is misleading. True perspective comes from recognizing that different people face different challenges, and that their path does not define our worth or our potential for joy. Comparison also creates unnecessary pressure. We start chasing goals that are not ours, driven by the need to measure up, rather than the desire to grow. This pursuit may lead to temporary achievement, but it rarely brings lasting satisfaction. Joy cannot thrive when it is borrowed from someone else's life. It grows only when it is rooted in authenticity. Breaking free from comparison is not about arrogance or isolation. It is about clarity. It is about focusing on the progress, experiences, and values that are meaningful to us, rather than trying to fit into someone else's story. When we stop measuring ourselves against others, we reclaim energy, attention, and peace. Joy deepens when we run our own race, celebrate our own milestones, and recognize that fulfillment is an internal measure, not an external one. Every small step taken in alignment with our own path becomes a source of satisfaction, and the mind finally learns to rest instead of constantly racing after someone else's life. In that space, life feels lighter, richer, and truly our own. Resistance is one of the quietest sources of suffering in life. We often struggle against reality, wishing things were different, wishing people would act differently, or wishing circumstances would align perfectly with our expectations. Every if only creates tension, and the mind tirelessly pushes against what already exists. In this push, joy retreats. Acceptance does not mean giving up or surrendering to passivity. It means seeing life clearly, without the constant overlay of judgment, complaint, or denial. When we stop fighting reality, we free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. The mind becomes lighter, less burdened by imagined grievances, and more capable of noticing the simple gifts that are already present. Resistance often disguises itself as planning, fixing, or controlling. We try to manage everything in our life, believing that if we could just get all the pieces aligned, happiness would follow. But reality rarely bends perfectly to our plans. The more we resist, the more we suffer when things inevitably unfold differently. Acceptance, on the other hand, allows us to flow with life rather than against it. Acceptance also opens space for creativity and action. When we acknowledge things as they are, we see clearly what is possible. Energy that would have gone into frustration can now go into constructive choices. We are no longer trapped in imagined scenarios or regrets about the past. Instead, we act from clarity rather than compulsion. The present moment, accepted fully, carries its own subtle beauty. Sunlight filtering through a window, a breeze on the skin, a shared glance, a quiet breath. These are often overlooked when the mind is busy resisting. Acceptance allows us to notice them, to breathe them in, and to experience them fully. Letting go of resistance is not instant, it is a practice. It requires awareness, patience, and gentle persistence. Each time we notice ourselves pushing against reality and consciously release that tension, we create a small space where peace can enter. Over time, these small moments of surrender accumulate, forming a stable ground from which joy can arise naturally, independent of circumstances. Joy is not something that arrives by chance. It does not appear when the conditions are perfect or when the world finally gives us permission to feel happy. True joy is cultivated, practiced, and nurtured in small, consistent ways. It is a skill of the heart, not a reward for circumstance. Every day offers countless opportunities to practice joy, yet we often overlook them. A mindful breath, a kind word, a moment of gratitude, a smile shared with someone else. These are not trivial. They are the building blocks of lasting happiness. Like exercising a muscle, the more we engage in these small acts, the stronger our capacity for joy becomes. Joy practiced daily is resilient. It does not crumble when challenges arise because it is rooted in choice rather than circumstance. Life will always bring difficulties, disappointments, and uncertainties, but a practiced heart can find light even in shadowed moments. Consistent attention to simple joys trains the mind to notice abundance rather than lack. The practice of joy also requires presence. It cannot coexist with distraction or constant planning for the future. When we are fully here, fully engaged with the moment, even ordinary experiences reveal themselves as extraordinary. The taste of food, the warmth of sunlight, the rhythm of breathing, these are gateways to a deep, sustaining happiness. Daily practice is also about small decisions, choosing kindness over irritation, patience over frustration, curiosity over judgment, or laughter over resentment. Each choice is a step toward a joyful life. Repeated over time, these choices transform not just our internal state, but the world around us, because joy is contagious. Practicing joy is not about perfection. Some days we may forget, feel tired, or be overwhelmed. That is part of the practice. Each day offers a new opportunity to return, to notice, and to engage. The commitment is gentle, not forced, yet it steadily reshapes the way we experience life. Ultimately, joy practiced every day becomes a way of being. It is no longer dependent on what happens outside, but arises from the way we choose to engage with what is happening inside and around us. Life becomes richer, lighter, and more meaningful, because joy is no longer a fleeting visitor. It becomes a companion, quietly present in every moment. Life does not promise perfect moments, grand victories, or endless certainty. What it does offer are countless small moments, moments of warmth, connection, beauty, and presence. If only we pause to notice them, Joy is not waiting somewhere in the future. It is quietly present in the now, in the little things we often overlook. When we learn to slow down, to be aware, to accept, to give, and to laugh at our imperfections, we discover that happiness is not a destination to reach, but a way of experiencing life. It is found not in extraordinary events, but in ordinary moments lived fully, consciously, and with gratitude. So let us choose to pay attention. Let us choose to embrace simplicity, presence, and connection. Let us practice joy every single day, no matter how small the moments may seem. Because life, in all its ordinary and imperfect beauty, is ready to be celebrated, and happiness is already here, quietly waiting for us to notice.